Recording is on.
Okay, bravo. So welcome everyone to Grace Between Races. It's our sixth meet gathering, and we are here with our guest speaker, Micky Metts. So I'm to hearing what she have to bring to the table, and Hillary will introduce her further on. But to begin with, I would just like us to just take a couple deep breaths. That's all. Not too long, just a couple deep breaths. So if we could center ourselves, take some deep breaths. You could do it with your focus on the root chakra. So we could ground it a little bit. When we finish, I will just like to do the introduction. Then I will give the vision and intention and a little bit about the guidelines, and then we'll continue from there with Hillary. Okay? So welcome again, everyone. So our gathering we hold space for raw, honest conversations about race issues and race reconciliation, where we can express our experiences about inequalities between the races and our experiences and how we are affected by it, and how we can bring about some kind of bridge or change in doing so. Our vision and intentions are to look at ways in which we can create change, the kind of change that our future generations would live in harmony with one another and with Mother Earth as a whole, understanding the oneness of all. Now, for the guidelines, we are a gathering that is all-inclusive. We speak from the heart. We honor each other's truth. We must be mindful of time and be open for feedback. And of course, we should celebrate risk-taking. Okay, so these are some little simple guidelines that we have up to. Okay. So now I would pass it on to Hillary to do her introduction, and we could take.
Thank you, Anne. Yeah, so we are here together and reminding us all that this inspiration came from doing reconciliation work in council practice. So we're sort of recreating that online and sort of not, and it's an experiment, just like Jitsi trying it today with Micky Metts is an experiment, and it's a work in progress. So Micky will share more about that and about all the work that she does, and it's really inspiring, and there's a lot there. So we're only gonna get a little taste. But it's like this new technology is just so exciting. And so given we're meeting in technology and bringing this ritual into this technological space, connecting with Micky is exciting because she's doing some really edge work around technology in many forms. So, and we'll use a technological version of our talking stick just as a symbol to honor the elders who have created and practiced counsel for millenniums, and that we are also in that lineage as well. And I want to invite us into a little bit deeper space of arriving and connecting. So we can close our eyes again and ground into where we are sitting and being, and honor the ancestors who we are bringing with us today. And that our lineages are here with us in this, and we are waking up all together. And I also want to honor and acknowledge the ancestors of the land where we are. And given we are all in different places, honoring where I am, the Abenaki and the Pekumtuk and the Nipmuc, and their legacy as people who have been connected to the land and continue to be, and may their wisdom continue to be shared and flourish. And last, I want to acknowledge all the forces that have brought us here together, all of our guides and guardians and protectors, and all the beings who have supported us to being here in this moment, knowing that we are doing this together. Now I invite you to continue to drop in to feeling and sensation, and to feel what it is to be seated wherever it is that you are, and to feel that grounding presence of your weight falling in to the chair or wherever you are sitting or lying or standing. And breathing out, releasing whatever you're ready to release, and breathing in, receiving the wholeness of your experience. Letting it all change with each breath. And breathing in and receiving yourself anew. And giving yourself over to what holds you into this earth, this Mother Earth, who holds us all. And I invite us to feel into our gut and whatever sensation we feel there. And to breathe into this space, receiving our wholeness in this place of our bodies. And to breathe out and breathe roots into the earth from this place of our gut. So we are breathing down into the earth, breathing this root down, and breathing in the energy of the Mother Earth to support us. Breathing in to fill this area, this gut area, with nourishment and juiciness from the earth. And then breathing out, continuing to release whatever you're ready to release. And feel free, you can make sounds if you want, since we're all on mute. You can move if you want. We'll do a few more breaths like this, breathing in nourishment and releasing. And then bring your awareness to your heart. And I invite you to send roots from your heart into this nourishment that you just breathed into your gut. And so you can breathe in and out from your heart, breathing out as you grow these roots down into your gut. And breathing in as you draw that nourishment up to your heart. With any movement or sounding that supports you. A couple more breaths. And then I invite you to bring your awareness to the top of your head and to see if you can open to receiving the blessings of the sky. And if you can let that wonder of the infinite come in and fill you with a golden light. And bless all of your being with this light. And let it pass through your heart and pass into your gut as well. And then pass all the way through your roots into the earth as well, blessing the earth. Honoring that we are earth and sky. And we are bridgers between the earth and the sky and between many others in the world, many differences. And that we can bring this unity to whoever we meet, anytime. And I invite you to open your eyes and come back and join us. And let's see, and then I'm gonna put us on to the screen share to pass the stick over to Anne. So we'll just take a moment.
So I don't have much to, well, we'll see how it goes, but I just have a little thing that came up for me over the 2 weeks that we had off. It's relating to, I hope everyone could hear me well. Okay. And it's relating to what came up for me was a question around racism itself and what it is. Because in talking over the weeks, I kept asking myself, well, racism, I know that, we all know the definition of it, but it doesn't make sense, that humanity would be fighting about simple, like things like color and, stuff like that. So in self-inquiry, what came up for me was really what's at the root of racism, which is really two emotions, fear and love we have. Those are the two fundamental emotions that we have. And when we look at everything, including racism, it falls under the category of fear. And when we look at the positive side, whether it's kindness, compassion, and all of that, it falls under the category of the emotion of love. And so when I look closely at those two things, I realize that all of it is really being caught up in the negativity. Well, not negative. Well, it is negativity, but the wounded ego. And at the end of the day, we all display it in different ways. But when we look at historically the world, we look at whether it's greed, power, or whatever the case may be, everybody who have a wounded ego, once they are given some kind of power, it goes haywire. Whether it's a Black person, a Chinese person, a white person, we all see people taking advantage of other people when it comes to whether they describe it as racism, whether they describe it as money, it doesn't matter what it disguises itself as. But at the end of the day, below all of that is fear. It boils back down to those two emotions, fear and love. We either coming from the two, either one. And we can't do the two at the same time. So it's either you coming from love or you coming from fear. And I guess this is, to boil it down, this is where the healing process comes, because it's up to each one of us individuals to do the self-work, because that's where it boils back down to. Each one is accountable for our own biases, our own, we all know what those things are, our own skeletons. At the end of the day, none of us is getting out here alive. We ain't gonna be taking any of this crap with us. We're here for a short period of time, and whatever we bring to the table here, that is our legacy. Because when you look at all the great sages, or whether we look at modern ones, they live their life, but what do we remember from them? Not the accumulation of what they have most of the time, is their right thing, how they live. You look at Hitler, you look at Stalin, you look at John, you look at, whatever, whoever, when you look at the people that have walked this earth in the past, what do we remember most of all from these people? And it's not the accumulation of wealth. Yes, we see, well, okay, they had some money, or they built a castle or whatever. But the most important thing we remember from them, did they leave a legacy of love, or did they leave a legacy of fear and violence? At the end of the day, my question to each one here is, each of us, including myself, is what kind of legacy do you want to leave here when we leave? Are we contributing to love, or are we contributing to fear? So that's my little piece of talk for today, and I hope it inspires someone who might come across it, that they may just dwell on it a little bit and be a little bit inspirational somewhere, somehow. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. Yeah, that's really poignant. And it's a choice, right? And it's figuring out how to make that choice. And I think we're doing what we can to be in love in this space and see how that can affect the rest of our lives as well. So it's always an incredible, generous action for all of us to show up here, and especially for our guests to come and bring their wisdom to us. And whether there are 2 guests like tonight or 10 guests, it doesn't really matter, because I've been looking at the YouTube channel, and some of our people have watched it 200 times for some of the recordings. So it's great, right? And people can watch them whenever they want. So it goes online, and we can come back to these recordings anytime as well. So I am thrilled to get to introduce Micky. And while we don't know each other that well, we had this amazing afternoon at an eco village around here a couple months ago. And I was like, who is this woman? And I need her wisdom in my life. And it was really inspiring to hear of all the things that she's engaged with. And so I'm not gonna be able to say all of them. And you can definitely read her bio on the event page. But I just want to point out a few things, because there's a lot of specific language. And she'll definitely explain what Agaric is, which is a design collective in Boston that she is a member of. And it's a co-op for free software for community building. So it's a whole movement that she's helping to build. And she's also a liaison between the U.S. Solidarity Economy Network, which I'm sure she'll explain a little bit more as well, and the United States Federation of Worker Cooperatives. So she's really helping people to build and own their own businesses, to be their own bosses, and that's super exciting. And she's also a member of May1st.org, which is a leadership committee, and she works with a lot of technical activists to get the tools that they need to build a big network to change the world. And so here we are, creating some new technology to do anti-racism work together. And I called her in to help us as well and see how we can evolve and shift our practices so that they can be more in aligned with solidarity with all peoples. And so we're using Jitsi, which is a good step forward, and you don't have to pay anyone to use it. No one owns it, which is awesome. So, and she'll also explain more about what Drupal is as well, as free software, and how we can get engaged with that. So from there, I'm just going to pass it on to you, Micky, for what you would like to share about your background and how you came to this, and also what you're inspired to share about the wisdom that you bring to all of it.
Wow. Well, thank you, Hillary, and thank you, Anne. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you, people, for tuning in and being willing to learn and hear things and educate me. I'm not all about teaching. I'm about learning from myself. And I guess I'll start with that fear thing. I am all about fear. I am the menace. The menace to society. And how did I become that? Because the womb I happened to spring from happened to land in one of the wealthiest communities in America. So my upbringing as a brown person in a totally white area that was home to very exclusive people in Hollywood and government. I went to school with daughters and sons of senators and governors and people that were being groomed to be presidents, and everyone in my town was groomed to be a leader. Unfortunately, they couldn't leave me out because I was the only brown person. It would have looked extremely harsh. But I managed at a very early age to realize that fear is what I wanted to overcome and focus on. And I embraced fear. I feel love is a natural thing that I don't have to pay much attention to in my life because I'm built of it. Fear is what I needed to help expose and to help people like pull the mask off of fear. And how to be anonymous is part of that. So I'm not in total agreement with the anonymous movement, but the principles behind it that we deserve our anonymity and our privacy is foremost important. So that's what drives me into the free software world, where there is a plethora of software that we own as citizens of Earth. It is not governed by a corporation. It is not led by a wealthy person doing something to you to get you to buy something. It is a structure of freedom that we can adapt in our own lives if we learn how. And if the problem with it is the doorways are not barricaded, well, they're kind of barricaded, but they're very hidden for people to get into the world of free software. Not many people know what it is because there have been many years of we've been deluged with advertisements of things we need to make us better, smarter, wealthier, more acceptable, not smell bad and have bad breath and ugly feet and all that stuff. And sadly, a lot of people who are afraid of looking at fear are not afraid of buying these things that they think will make them relevant and important, which is very sad. There's nothing to buy, there's lots to do. There's lots of tools to build things with, and they have been occluded from the view of the average citizen. People have been um, indoctrinated for years with these horrible untruths, things like we need to go to school and we need to follow rules that are unjust and we need to be quiet and we need to sit down and have decorum, and that's all bullshit. I, I, I did not realize how fearful people in my hometown were of me as a little brown girl spouting whatever she wanted to spout and doing whatever she wanted to do. I had a miraculous environment, and I don't know how all the situations came together, but in a nutshell, as I said, I lived in a totally white environment, but my father happened to have a pivotal position in this society because he was the owner of the local news radio station, which meant he knew all the capitalists that were meeting at these country clubs and on golf courses, deciding our futures and our pains and pleasures. So I was a child that was not shooed out of the room. I was privy to all of these conversations. I particularly remember a point in the 60s sitting in a room full of my friends' fathers, mostly, while the women were serving hors d'oeuvres and stuff. And they were discussing how the hippies in 1967, 68 were representative of a style of clothing they could sell. And with this, they could sell an ideology. And they were laughing at people that were wearing ripped clothes because they were poor. And they, as you see, figured out a way to market this to the world, not just to the Americans and not just to the wealthy Americans. And not one of us, I believe, stops to think when they look at a ripped clothing item in a store or on a person who is not poverty stricken, what is the message? I can't tell you for yourself. You must decide this message and decide how to communicate to this person that this is really an injustice. This is a terrible travesty that has been put on us, and it has locked us into an attitude that we don't deserve to have better. We will work at a should someone work at a job full time to afford a ripped clothing? That is just it's unconscionable. Anyway, that's a whole nother talk. I am at an exciting place in our time, which is the convergence of many networks that are now all waking up and realizing we need each other. We cannot float alone. We cannot carry a banner that is just strictly for some people and not others. I'm at the intersection of the free software, cooperative movement, the platform cooperative movement, which is building platforms that are owned by the people together, like a platform would be Uber. So, building an Uber cooperative that is owned by the drivers. Things like that are of paramount importance because we need to own our foundations. When there are many of us that are occluded from this information right now that are out building these monumental, wonderful things, networks, but they are building them on the man's system. They are building on top of Google. They are building on top of Amazon. They are building their business based world on top of an inequitable horror foundation that is, in a way, we are like the Egyptians who are digging the graves and being shoved into them. And then the next people that shoved us in get shoved in by the next people. We are eating our own, and it is not because we want to, it is because we do not understand that there is another way. And when we look at that other way, we get a peek into a world of technology. We feel very small and we are really large. That is the fear of the technology driven world now. The fear is that the masses will wake up, realize the inequities, realize that they are building on a shill system. Um, Anyone building a company or cooperative or anything on top of a Google or Amazon does not really realize the power that Google and Amazon have to shut them down in a second and silence them. And along with that, have ownership of all of their assets, like their contact list, their mailing lists. And I'm sure you might have met people who have been on Facebook and then shut off, and there go all their family pictures. They don't have access to any of their friends because they don't know their phone numbers. They just know them on Facebook. This is a tragedy that people don't really understand until it happens to them or someone they know very closely. It's not a reality. You just go along in your day posting things that you think are helping, posting a meme on Facebook, fight the revolution because they're bad, stuff like that. This does not reach a wide audience, although you think it does. It's really, you are being kept as a small fish in a very, very big pond. Um, I love to say that it's moving quickly, and it is moving more quickly than it has. Networks and movements waking up and joining together to share their assets, their knowledge, their histories, where they've come from, where they want to go. I just toured Mexico for 3 months. Mexico is much farther ahead of America in the world of cooperatives because they have been forced to. They have been so impoverished that there is no way to get along without the help of your neighbor. You just starve and die. That is a reality here, but most people don't see it. We see it only reflected on the news when someone is murdered by the police, and then we're all distracted to rise up against this injustice when really the injustice is several layers below. That is just a symptom. That is like a pimple on the face of the problem, one of us being taken down. But it seems to gather all the attention, but only for moments. And then we're back into our how do I protect me? How do I protect my family? How do I make that not happen to me? I'm not going to be that next person shot by the police. Well, you are. We all are. We are already shot. We're shot and we're shooting ourselves in the foot unless we really learn about free technology and the communities and movements that exist around them. So you would probably ask, how does one find out about those things? By looking at events and going to ones you feel uncomfortable with, going to high end technology events and being free enough to ask stupid questions because it's all a poser, like it's a delusion or an illusion that you and a delusion that you don't fit in this room. You do fit in this room, and we need more people who are non-technical in these rooms to guide the building of softwares that will protect our privacy and our anonymity and our freedoms. There's the Free Software Foundation, which is based in Boston. They have limited funds to do outreach. They exist on grants and donations and volunteers, but they are doing a really good job of having all the resources on their site that people would need to understand it and get started in living a life of freedom on freedom based technologies. When we embrace things like Google Voice and things that are categorizing us into categories we know nothing about, we think we have nothing to hide. Well, that doesn't matter. As we know, a law is only used when someone wants something. A law can sit there dormant for you, the poor person, and you will have no lawyer to fight it with, while a team of lawyers could make an incident out of absolutely nothing and put you in jail. This has been seen over and over again, yet people still obey the law. I don't know why. I don't. I try not to. When it's an unjust law, I do my best to not obey it and to do that publicly. I'm ready to be the poster girl for any of these horrible laws they try to enforce on us. I go through barriers. When people tell me the section for you is over there, I just stand there and I say, yeah, sure, okay. And I don't move. And then they move me, maybe, at times. But I'm ready to be moved. I'm so moved internally that a physical movement is, just another added thing. There are lots of people on the front lines of this with their bodies. Happily, I was back in the 60s when I had a body. Now that I'm in my 60s, I don't. And I cannot be there, but I can be there virtually to support people and help them with knowledge and information. There are movements, networks all over. I will get some resource links to Hillary and Anne, and I'll put that there are some resource links on our website that can help people with starting a cooperative, helping a cooperative start, making your town more welcoming for cooperatives. I belong to the Greater Chamber of Boston Cooperatives. And last year, it took us almost 2 years, but we managed to get to City Hall and make it a change in how you register a business. And now people are able to register as a cooperative. It took some work. It took some concerted effort. It took some people with brains and scholarships, scholarly attitudes, things I don't have. But I do know how to effectively talk with those people to help them gather the information needed and hook them up with other people they need to learn more about what is needed, why is this law need to be changed, and how can we promote it so that local business people realize they don't have to be a corporation and pay $500 and do all this dancing through hoops of non-native corruption. So I guess I talk a lot, so feel free to interrupt me. Just raise a hand, ask a question or whatever. Is there something I have left out?
Nothing at all, in my perspective. I think you're welcome to keep talking, but I also think that if if someone has a specific question, it'd be great to address specific needs as well. And yeah, Anne, do you want to share anything, since that's what we usually do?
Oops, we cannot hear you now. We cannot hear your mic.
I would just like Mickey to address whether, if she could go through the steps of people who are marginalized and they are hearing about this, how they can come, like start
Okay.
to commence, like getting started with doing a cooperative in this respect.
Okay. I will, as I said, get a list of resources to Hillary. And there are many sites, like there is a cooperative named Lumio, and they have developed a free software that allows you to vote when you're at, like, non-linear voting. So you can put up a proposal, people can vote yes or no, or I need more info and discussion. And this is a really helpful tool because, well, my cooperative, we're international, so we don't always get in a room together. We have online rooms like this. But to have a site like Lumio where we can put up a proposal and all of our fellow cooperators can weigh in on it, that is a really helpful thing. I know that there are companies like Google trying to get people to use their tools that do similar things like this. But again, the tragedy comes when you are deemed disruptible to Google and they shut you off. You go dark in the night. No one knows what happened to you. What happened to George's website? Oh, he must be fixing it, or he moved or something. No, these do not get investigated, period. Why did that site go down? It had so much useful information. Um, May 1st is a web hosting. We are a member owned group, and we are transitioning into a cooperative, but the members own it, and we all vote on how May 1st should work. We offer web hosting, and it's the largest, I guess, left leaning web host in the world. We host sites like Black Lives Matters that people try to take down, and we secure them, and we will go to jail before we give up your information. We don't feel that that is a viable system to have a web host give up information to the government or to anyone who's asking for it. That is just the basic privacy violation, and we will not do that. So it's an organization that provides tools, free software tools, for us as activists and individuals to use. In fact, May 1st hosts a version of Jitsi, and it's not just for members, anyone can use it. It is also a work in progress. Jitsi is a free software that you can take and modify in any way. The one we're using now is the main Jitsi instance that developers work on and roll out new changes, and then we respond to them and say it's working or it's not working, or we'd like to see this. And so this instance of Jitsi is taken by groups like May 1st and modified to their own liking. So if you look at the May 1st instance, which would be meet.may1st.org, um, it's a bit different than this, as it does not have all of the features, because a group like May 1st studies the features first. We look at the software and we make sure there is nothing in there before we offer it to our members. So it is a more limited version of Jitsi that is there, as there are all over the world. Any programmer or any citizen can download Jitsi and modify it themselves if they have the programming abilities, or get a friend to go down to the local library at your university and just, hey, people, come over here, look at this. Any developers, have you seen this Jitsi thing? What would you do with it? It's got a little feedback when we have a mic thing. just talking about these things instead of talking about who won the FNL game or the NFL game or things like this. I think the one of the largest ruiners of freedom is our ability to just go along with distractive conversations. These are like firebombs thrown into our communities, and they can range from very important topics to nonsensical topics like the NFL thing. But there are very important topics thrown in there, like gender pronouns or something. Um, I don't mean to be dismissive, but I really believe that this is a distractor bomb, and it is to get us to not ally with each other and to give us things to argue about that are at a much lower level than our freedom. Um, we are making issues out of things that should be just like, who cares what you are? I just value you as a human, and I value you because you are alive and you have energy and are doing things. What you do in your private life or whatever should not be a reason to attack you, but it has become one. I don't think this is akin to the police driving a van full of guns into a city and leaving it there open for the kids to grab and play with guns or drugs or whatever. You are throwing hot topics into people and making it a news issue, whereas it should be a community issue. There should be places for discussion of this and how people are treated, but the way it's being done is really blowing up in everyone's face. And at the outset it's giving the larger players who are throwing these fire bombs more fuel for the fire, like, see those bad lesbians, or whatever, like, see how the queers are doing this. It's just a labeling that we take on ourselves. This was done in the Jim Crow era, where people didn't feel good enough to go to a white drinking fountain, and they started beating people, of course, when they started, and then people were fearful. Then it turned into, we're not good enough to drink out of that fountain, so we'll build our own fountain. And then, it just goes on and on with these distractor bombs. I would like everyone to get beyond the bomb and into the world of developers. The future is development, period. There will not be any other future. There will only be the future of online. This is already broken down to the children who are in school at like age 8, 9, 10 right now. They really, most of them do not have an outside life where they meet people, have friends, and do things. They play games online, and these games are destructive as can be. They are soul destructors. They are teaching people first person killer games. I have never, when I was that age, I would never think of hearing someone my age talk about death. That was like, what is that? You don't talk about killing. You didn't talk about harming, violence. These things were not a part of our vocabulary. We were talking about ideas and things to build. But then I realized when I moved to Boston from Connecticut, critical thinking like that is not taught. People don't talk about ideas and building things. I learned, I guess, in school and from my parents that there are three different types of conversations. There are people who talk about people, there are people who talk about things, and there are people who talk about ideas. In Boston, I have met very few people who go through the Boston school system that even have an idea of what talking about an idea is or a concept. And it's all down to who's with who and who's doing what to who. Or this thing I saw or this thing I bought. And I'm mortified. I'm so happy I'm old. But that's the best thing about me. Um, And that is one thing I am in a quandary at how to change. That takes a whole system to change it. So I became part of a group that is planning to start a new Boston public school based on mindfulness, based on personal learning, based on no testing. When I say no testing, I mean no formalized testing where you check boxes on a piece of paper that is so foreign to a human life that I don't know what they're thinking, except for prison. And I believe testing should be every moment of your life. It should be walking through the halls and going, "Hi, Jimmy, how was your day today? What did you learn? This is what I learned." That is testing. I don't see where they put that on a paper and have you check a box. Yes, I learned something today. What was it? Well, I forget. No, but I think the humanness is being deflated from this world, and people are willing to take on the romantic cyborg life of the future. Like where I will just be a virtual person attacking and helping where I can, like a savior, a superhero. The nonsense of Superman has become technolified or whatever. And you think you can swoop in and fix a situation by posting a meme on Facebook. I'm going to get those capitalists and people that are robbing me by exposing them. Well, as you've seen, exposing them only allows them to flaunt their new fancy hat and outfit. Hey, here's my new villain hat. How you like it? And that's what I'm doing to you in the courts. Um, I've also come to realize that a lot of poor neighborhoods in Boston are totally disenfranchised from the richer neighborhoods and the technology neighborhoods. There are people in Boston that do not know where MIT or Harvard are located. That to me is an arrow in the heart. I have met people within the last year, young people in their 30s, 20s, that do not know where or what MIT is. Um, it's astonishing. Yes, your face was just the face I made. It's like, what? That's because I have an education with critical thinking skills that I know this. And I knew when I come to Boston, what do I do? I go to MIT, I open a door and I say, "What are you doing in there?" And and I attach myself to scientists and people who have the tools and are working on brilliant things that could save the planet, but they are just locked into this little MIT thing. Just as astonishing, people in MIT do not know where Dorchester is. Now, why is this? Now, also, why is this not a planned thing? Well, I have a hard time believing that when my Google Maps thing cannot get me 3 miles from my house to an area in Dorchester reliably. I get near it and it's saying, take a left, take a right, take a left, go straight, do this, do that. It's jumbles every time I try to get 3 miles from my house to where I have met people in Dorchester. And I'm a brown person. It took me this long to go over and meet people in Dorchester. I'm kicking my ass. I'm going, why was that so hard? Was this planned? Was this, have I been circumvented in my journey by having none of these things show up when I search for something on a map, like food? It won't show me anything 2 or 3 miles away in Dorchester. I can't not believe that this is not a distinct plan to separate the city. Even at one of the T stations on the brown side of town, it's all ramshackledy, fucked up, and looking like a bomb went off or something. On the other side, it's all pristine, looking like the face of Nordstrom. Uh, like, why is that? So when a new friend from Dorchester told me to meet him at this Ruggles station, I've heard of Ruggles Station, but I had never been there really. But then again, I had been past it on the main street in Boston, and I went there. I waited for him in front of this beautiful palatial, like Nordstrom face, and he never came out. And he texted me, "Where are you? I'm here." And then I found out there's a backside to it. What is that? What is going on there? And it's called the International Village. It's like, How international is that? Is this is all got to come down and be exposed? It's but then what do people do with the information if they have no critical thinking skills? So a few weeks ago, I spoke at Libre Planet, which is the Free Software Foundation's yearly international event. I was the closing keynote speaker, and what I spoke about is how do we avoid this dystopian Orwellian world of 1984. Well, I guess I should have not listened to a scholar to help me with the title because every brown face I ran into said, "What's an Orwellio?" And I said, "It's a nothing. It's a misnomer. It is a word used to describe a horrible place, a horrible atmosphere." But I was shocked that no one knew Orwell, but I shouldn't have been. I was like, why should they? Why should anyone know this writer? There's no good reason. Um, but it was just really depressing to realize that. And my talk was not about how to get some technology shield up and push a button and get a false name and and stuff like that and be like Edward Snowden hiding out in Russia um, to do your good thing. My bottom line of how we prevent this is by using our personal power and enabling others to use their own personal power. There's no other way out of this box, Jack. That's the only way. Because if one of us doesn't have their personal power, that drags us down into the abyss. And all the powers that be in the world, their sole focus is removing your personal power from you, making you homogenized into something that is an earpiece for their whispers of, you will be accepted if you have these shoes on, and and to see that happen and to grow up in a very wealthy atmosphere where, yeah, that did work. If you had those shoes on, man, you kicked it at the prom. That's why I wore combat boots to my prom and I kicked ass. With my because I had to wear the gown because my mom made it and I love my mom, but I would have been there in jeans and because I didn't know what jeans represented at that time. Now that I realize what jeans represent, they are a laughing glance and blow at the working class. Anyone who is not working class wearing jeans, I'm sorry, but you are giving a horrifying message to people without knowing it and without it being spoken. It's just intrinsic. And we're not, I say to my husband who still wears jeans, you're not working on the lower back 40. Why are you wearing these things to save your legs from the brush and rattlesnakes? It's a message. And we've gone beyond the message to think it's a style. Well, I'd love everyone to realize, and next time they see a style, what does that say to the working class and poverty ridden world? What is the message? Why is that a message that we want to give? And the only explanation I can think of is that we don't know we're giving a message. It's like we're wearing a big beacon for capitalism, for murder of poor people, and we are just not conscious. We must become conscious. We must discuss these things in public. And I constantly ask everyone, I don't dare them, but I kind of do, like, next time someone talks about a sporting event, tell them about jeans. No, I don't know. Or ask them about why, what is their legacy of their jean wearing, or, ask them something pertinent to the world and derail that conversation. Conversations about weather, conversations about anything that does not really affect your life and well being should be put to rest. There should be a graveyard of these conversations that are distractor bombs. Um, I encourage everyone, as I said, to go into a room that's uncomfortable. Find a technology event in your area. Get some friends if you need moral support, or go there alone. It's really fun. I've had the most incredible life walking into rooms where people hate me. It's awesome. It's just awesome. It's just the power to just see, oh, she's here. It's like great. And then looking back at my life, I didn't realize what a threat I was to my community when dating age came about. Here I was, a beautiful black woman with all these, and because I didn't do girly things, I was always hanging around with guys. I was a mechanic. I did all the things they didn't want you to do. We had no vocational school at our thing, and anyone who worked with their hands was like a filthy person. And that is what I wanted to do. So I traveled to the next town, Norwalk, Connecticut, and met people who were being mechanics. But then I realized how I fell into I'm no angel. I fell into this horrible malaise and of entitlement. And it manifested one night when I was working at my friend's garage. We were all just hanging out. It was like 2 in the morning. He happened to be German, and his father happened to be a friend of Carl Benz. And at 3 in the morning, we got a shipment of Nazi staff cars. Dun dun dun! What did we do? We jumped in them and rode around town with the insignias emblazoned all over the hoods, and we were like, like driving down the beach, waking people up in neighborhoods. Look at this Nazi staff car. And like the next day, I kind of had a realization of like, wow, the hurt and pain that could have been or maybe was caused by someone seeing this and having a flashback or having, like remembered a relative who was caught up in all that. And it just like brought me to a whole swirling down well of like, what is this entitlement thing and how did it get to me? I don't know. And I still can't realize how did that happen in my life. I will forever feel saddened and horrified that I did that. That's crazy shit. But and we as people of color or whatever, African Americans or Chinese Americans, we would look at that as that's something a bunch of white people do. And it's like, wait a minute, was I whitened? I was like, wow, my brain got whitified at that moment in a very bad way because and there are ways that your brain can be blackified in very bad ways too. Of the brown people I have met recently are in a culture of the prison cycle, where they go to prison for a few years, they get out for a few years, they have no resources, no skills, they have nothing to do but go back to prison. So I'm really thinking deeply about ways people brain patterns can be modified to reject their own best recourse and to align themselves with enemy causes because that is what they have been used to. And they do not have the critical thinking skills or the power until they get in a group and realize, yes, it's not just me. I wasn't the only person, thinking badly about this. I have to talk with other people who have felt this. And I realize I'm an outlier and I don't have a life that I can relate to anyone else in. I don't know anyone else that grew up in this circumstance. I don't know. I've always felt kind of handicapped from it. I never had violence in my life, so I had a limited understanding of what it is. I was never hit. I never hit anyone. I never saw anyone hit anyone. I didn't even see anyone yell at anyone in my childhood. What is that? That's like an alien. Who are you? Is this Miss High and Mighty? And it's like, no, it just wasn't in the reality. It was as if I had never seen a cat. It's like weird. It's very weird, and it's hard to talk to people and open up about because it's very sad. It is very sad. I feel like I've missed a huge part of life. Not that I needed that in my life, but I do need to talk with people that have experienced that and let them know that that is not the only way, and that there are people who did not experience this. Because when I tell black people this, they're like, "What are you talking about? You liar." People cannot believe it. Um, and to me, it's horrifying that this whole part of life exists, and now I always see the outcome of it on the news, and like now that I've met people from communities that are perpetually put in jail, um, I can better understand it. And what I need to understand is how to remove them from that and into a viable community that supports them, which seems to be nigh impossible because people are just rooted in where their community is. They can't make the transition. They feel like I am not worthy. I do not belong here. Just for me, realizing that people see a big sign when they walk into MIT, "You do not belong here." You know, I've never seen that sign. Whereas people who view me and see a brown woman walking in there, they think I've seen that sign and I must be extra brave or something like that. It's just like, no, those signs don't exist. What are you talking about? You're a scientist. I'm a person. I want to know what you know. So when I go to MIT and I make a connection with a scientist, I find them online. I write to them. I say, "Can I come visit you?" Most of them say yes, 99%. I go visit them. I make friends. I find out what their project is they're working on. We become friends. And soon it's like I have to put them on hold. Like, "No, I can't look at your dissertation. I skipped high school for that reason. I don't need that shit." And so, yeah, it's very strange. I did skip most of high school. It was useless. I stood outside the window and beckoned people to come out and talk behind the dumpster about real things and go on adventures and learn things. And that did a really a world of good for me. But I don't think any of my white friends there could have gotten away with it. They would have flunked. They would have been pointed at. They couldn't point at the only black person who happened to be the president of the student council on a write-in ballot in my senior year. And so they just couldn't deal with me, so they graduated me. And I just took the diploma, threw it on the ground, and said, "Power to the people," and walked away. And I said, "Keep that shit," and I never looked back. I just looked into institutions, as I just told you. I find a scientist or someone doing something there, a project, and I get involved. I insert myself. And giving people the power to insert themselves where you need to be inserted, that's what I found great about the anonymous movement. Do it. If you find you're in the place and the right time is there and you have the skill, do it. And I don't think we need schools to do that. We need more people in groups like this, smaller, larger, medium, whatever, to share this information and pass it on. So,
Yeah,
from breathing.
thanks for all of that journey and sharing all of your journey. And yeah, I'm just like processing all of that. And there's so many ways in which I was, having lived in Boston and Cambridge and helped to start a cooperative housing nonprofit in Roxbury, actually, close to Dorchester, while I was there. And it would take an hour drive often from Harvard Square all the way down to Roxbury, even though it's one road. It's really weird. It's just straight. And
it's weird.
yeah, and it would take, super long on the bus, that's for sure. So I ended up never living there, partly because I had to finish my degree, and it was like, I'm not going to spend that kind of time in public transportation. That's a
That's
waste of my
exactly
time.
the problem I'm having now with having students who live in Roxbury and Dorchester get to MIT to, use our workspace or whatever. And I just steal workspace. I don't rent workspace. I go into colleges and I find their open spaces and I work there until I'm asked to move. And I haven't been asked to move, which is great. But I would like to just say one thing about the Solidarity Economy Network and cooperatives. This is something very important, and all it means is that we do business with people that we are in solidarity with. We try to do business with cooperatives, but you can't just do business only with cooperatives because there aren't enough of us yet. But doing businesses with people who feel that solidarity and are perhaps worker owned or on a track to become worker owned or have open ears to listen about how to become worker owned and change their existence and the community around them. A group I belong to called Ujima Boston is making great strides in doing this. And the cat does not want you to hear this, but I'm going to say it anyway. And so Ujima is doing things on the ground, like they are making relationships between anchor institutions and local vendors to have long-term relationships. Like, why should a hospital be buying Panera Bread or Dunkin' Donuts when there are, Marge and Harry that bake wonderful cookies and donuts right next door to them? We had a public assembly where they named the businesses and put big sheets of paper around the room in two columns, and you had to do pro and con of what do these businesses bring to the neighborhood and what do they take away. I suggest every town in America do this tomorrow, if the latest. This is a really revealing exercise. What we've labeled what are extractive businesses that take assets out of the community and what are businesses that are good for the community. So naturally, we want to help them. We don't want to kill the other businesses. First, we want to talk with them. So I'm suggesting, or we're suggesting, groups, small groups, go and actually physically talk with the people who are managing this business for a horrible company, a bad company model that treats their workers poorly, and make a dialogue, open a dialogue, give them a chance to change, and if not, give them the boot. It's like, you don't belong in our community, you're just taking things away, and we see it. If they don't know we see it, they just keep on doing it. So we have to physically put our bodies not in a, like a riot or picket line or, kind of demonstrations. We have to get personal. Get four friends, go down there to the creepy business and ask them why they're creepy. It's like Dennis the Menace. Why are you creepy, Mr. Wilson? What's going on? you know, what could be behind this? Why won't you help the little children? Oh, well, it's an old tactic that they've tried to block us from doing by, as I said, segregating us into our being in our homes just on a video game, instead of really thinking about what you need in your community. So UjimaBoston.com is just fantastic. That's just one thing they're doing. They are breaking down, we're working with decolonization. We are all so colonized. And that's from, like, about what I was just talking about. I managed not to be colonized, and I don't know why. I think a lot of it was to do with my parents, that they supported everything I did and didn't heavy hand it. They just showed me things, showed me opportunities, and I was allowed to do what I wanted, and they supported it. And fortunately, nothing failed. It was just a win big time for all of us, and there were no arguments or you're going to college, young lady, you're having children, grandchildren, blah, blah. There was none of that. It was all like, what do you want to do, Mick? It's another day. What are you up to? And or like, it was just so reversed for me. If my friends dropped me off at 3 a.m. from a party, my parents would be really upset and say, why didn't you bring them in? We have chili on the stove. I tell people that, they're like, what? It's like, you didn't invite them in, you bad girl. Okay. Next time I will. And it was just like a totally upside down world. And I think it's time for people's worlds to get upside down. As Notre Dame burns. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, and so all those links, I'll post them on the Race Between Races page. And I see, Jerry, you have your hand up. And I have a big question to ask too around. So, right now, we're on Facebook, right? And
Oh,
so, we can reach a lot of people that way, and we have. And I have some emails from some people, and we can go through that process of getting everyone's emails and transitioning, or just being like, "Hey, everyone, we're post on the Facebook. We're transitioning to this platform, but what platform would that be?" And Anne and I have also talked about um, opening, like maybe starting. We might start a co-op possibly, and or possibly even nonprofit, and raise donations to be able to sustain this, because longer term we're just doing this totally because we're inspired and passionate around it, and that can be sustained for a little while, but it would be great if this could grow too.
yes. Well,
So
there
yeah.
is an effective way to use Facebook. You should only post links on Facebook to your website where the details are. Only thing you should post on Facebook is, we're having an event, come to my site. Here's the link. Do not post the info on Facebook, and that use it as a billboard, like just a note placement to link to your website and your business. Don't
Mhm.
give them the business.
and
Um,
and you'd recommend building your own website using this free software.
yes, I
Yeah.
talk about Drupal, which kind of saved my life. Drupal is a free software to build your website. It's not easy. WordPress is a great choice too. It's also free software. But the difference with Drupal is there's an amazing community around Drupal that does things for good. And you can find mentors, tutors, and people doing Drupal in just about every city in the world. There's a Drupal group. You can go to drupacal.org, I believe, and see the map with all the Drupal events going on around the world. I just came back from Seattle, where we had a week-long Drupal Con, which is a Drupal convention, where people show what they've done with Drupal, what they've built. There was one guy there who showed an app where they use saving lives in Syria. People are actually able to connect and help each other do things that were insurmountable just a few years ago. And it, he's sending me the information. I'll put that on the resource page when I get it. But it's actually building things that save lives and are helping people, instead of just trying to help someone put up a website to sell their shoes, or whatever they're selling. Um, so I would advise you look into the Drupal community. Even if you're not interested, I would advise you sign up for an account now, because it will become relevant soon. It's the founder of Drupal is very interested in helping communities grow, thrive, and do wonderful things. There are many initiatives within Drupal to help communities build infrastructure that they need with software. Drupal runs most of the large websites you see online, like the government websites, and academia have chosen Drupal as their go to default system. So that means and translates into work for people, and especially people who don't have any assets to build a company. I had $8 in my pocket when I found Drupal, and I went around the town and found a pizza place that needed a website. And I also joined the Drupal group that meets in Boston. I met some developers, found out what they do. One guy does photo galleries, another woman does, blog structure and prettying up the thing with images and design. And then I became friends, got interested in what they were doing, found a pizza place that needed a website, and I hired people from the Drupal community to do it, and was able to pay myself for managing the process. So I became an agency without realizing what I was doing. any person can do this right now. You could do this just without a computer using the library. You could start your website there, but it is recommended to have a computer. So what I do is I take on a few students and I get them a laptop for like about $150. They can show me progress every week and meet with me and learn new things, or they can choose to buy the computer outright if they don't want to do anything within the lines. And I welcome anyone to come and learn. We can do learning at a distance. We can learn through Jitsi, sharing screens, and getting the basic foundations of Drupal to make a website. And it's not rocket science. It turns into rocket science at a certain level. Within about 2 months, you could be worthy of building your own website, making a small one for someone else. Then it gets really hard, and there's a big cliff you fall off of down into a ravine, and people are shoveling ropes down in there to get you out and stuff. But you meet developers along the way who take interest in your project. And one of the projects that I have right now that I would love to share and get everyone interested in is called solidarityhousing.org, which will allow us to travel all over the world and not have to pay for somewhere to stay, and to stay with people who are synergistic with what we are doing. So if I was going to look in solidarity housing, I would look for people that do Drupal, perhaps, or people that are in solidarity economy. And I want them to introduce me to their local network when I visit them in Minneapolis or wherever I'm going for an event. I'm really tired of seeing this Airbnb crap where people go stay someplace and you hide from the host. Oh, he's going to see me. I better, I better be quiet. The host might know I'm here and I'll have to talk with them about blather. I don't know. Small talk. So I want to stay with technologists and I want to stay with real people that aren't technologists. And I want to learn from my trip and I want to educate on my trip. I don't want to go there and hide in a room and go to my event and come back. I want to be introduced to local activists. I want to know what's going on in their town, and I want to see how it connects with what I'm doing. I'm sick and tired of people hiding in an Airbnb. So it's solidarityhousing.org, and I'm building it on Drupal. And I'm amassing a crew to help me with the details, the part of the deep buildings that I don't know how to do, like they making it easy for people to just log on and post their room or not have to log on. I don't, and instead of being, only being rated by other guests, I would like it to be before you go and stay with someone, you have to have 3 video conferences with them that are, like 15 minutes to a half an hour long each. And you have to see what is your synergy and maybe write a little blurb for the site of how I found these people to stay with and what it meant to me. It's like a school assignment. I'm becoming tough now. I've got to write it. I'm the teacher I never wanted to be, the one I ran from. Yes.
That's so cool. That's so exciting. It's like couch surfing 2.0.
Yeah, and when it's at a point, I will let everyone know that they can come and help test this, and we'll put up some tests, and you can try making a page to offer a room in your house or a fake room somewhere just to try it out and see how it works.
Or maybe camping outside if you don't have an extra.
All of it. It's going to include all kinds of structures, and it's going to explode into solidarity transportation where people have cars that they can let you use when you go visit someplace. Why should you be subject to an infernal T system that, you can't even pay cash with the T anymore? They're taking that away. And in Boston, I don't know if you've heard, they're arming the T police soon. That's going to be pleasant. Armed T police, transit police. It's unconscionable what's going on. And we're all just sitting back because we don't have any idea of how to do something or raise our voice, because we have to raise our voices. It can't just be one lone person. But I'm willing to do that. I'll climb on top of the MIT building and yell. But I got to know what you yell. What should I be yelling? What does everyone want me to yell? Maybe I'll put up a campaign for that. A certain date I will climb up there. You vote for me,
Yeah.
I should say.
Yeah, there could be a website for that, right? That's
Yes.
like, let's decide what needs to be yelled. Like,
There you go. We
so
could take over all the institutions on one day and yell the same thing. Because I remember when institutions like schools were where ideas were nurtured and people thought about the community they lived in and people thought about human rights. And now we're just working to teach robots how to do our jobs. Well, if I could teach a robot to go around the world and, espouse the virtues of revolt. Well, I would. Revolutionary robots. They go to towns and rah, rah, this should be.
um, well, I just want to give space, Jerry, because I know you probably have a lot to ask and share.
Would love to hear from you.
Micky, thank you so much. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I hear.
Awesome. So I'm really curious about this. I'm a web developer, and so I work a lot with WordPress. I worked actually with Drupal about 10 years ago when it was first coming out, and yeah,
I'm so
and
sorry.
yeah, I know I saw that, and sort of have gone more over into WordPress, but really my question is actually at a deeper level because there's the internet question. There's net neutrality, that they keep trying to take that away. But is there really any net neutrality? I mean, the internet could be shut down by a government at any moment, right? So all these platforms, all these, things that we build, they could be taken away because of our dependency on the internet. And
Yes.
even, internet access isn't free. We mostly are with a Comcast or a Verizon now. And yes, you could go and get free Wi-Fi in the library or something like that, but you have to have the device and you have to have, these things. So where does the cooperative mindset move in terms of connectivity? How do we become connected free from the regulation and from the government and from that power structure? So that's my big question.
Yay! There is a way. There is a movement to create mesh nets. Are you familiar with the mesh net? A mesh net is where we each have an antenna on our roof. And with one uplink to the internet, they're not going to shut every single person off. With one uplink to the internet, a mesh net can provide for everyone in a local area. And as we connect them out together, we are connected in our own network. And we don't need to rely so much on the Comcast Verizon world. Of course, we still do, but it's like instead of 3,000 of us being on Comcast, 10 of us are on it, or something like that. And it's just a beautiful way of thinking. It's just started in New York a couple of years ago, New York Mesh, and we have a Boston MeshNet group that started last year. We have meetings every Tuesday night, and we just did our first MeshNet installation in Boston. We're going to be doing a lot more over the summer. I'm hoping to get an antenna on my roof. We're now in the planning phases of how do we alert people that they can do this. Who do we approach first? I guess it would have to be a homeowner and or someone who the landlord doesn't go up on the roof and we have to figure out ways to get these antennas everywhere, much like those horrible 5G antennas that they're putting everywhere that people are thinking will radiate us to toast, and but they're just so invasive. It's ridiculous. But meshnet, I think, is the way, and I will give some of those resources links to Hillary. But you can just do a search, a regular DuckDuckGo search engine search for meshnet Boston. or I think it's meshnyc.org. I don't know that Boston, we have our own URL yet.
Cool. I mean, that's awesome on the local scale, but one of the things we love about the internet is that it's global. So
Yes,
how
we have to
we
connect the mesh net globally. Connect a mesh net to another mesh net, to another mesh net, to another mesh net.
so
So
that's
that
possible.
that's what we're working on. We've got the MITers and the Harvarders working on this difficult problem because yes, a mesh net is a local thing, much like a ham radio kind of a thing, but we also need to have ham radios um, where there are places in the world where it's not like a city or a congregation of people, like outback places. We need to have these in place for when the internet does go down for us, because it will.
One of my biggest hopes for the internet was that it was going to bring about true democracy, that it would bring a voice and the the duty for us all to vote like every week or something like that and be engaged. It has the power to do
Yeah.
that, right? But we
Yes.
need a non-regulated, something that can't be fucked with
A
way.
mechanism.
Yeah, for that to happen. So it's nice to know that that's already in conception,
Yes.
and that maybe in 5-10 years we could maybe have something like that. That'd be awesome, and it would be solar powered or something, so it would be free.
Exactly.
Completely.
Yes. Everyone has the internet, our internet, and not the advertisement net. Yeah.
Right on. Right on. That's beautiful. It's nice to know that it's there.
Yes. It's all there. We just need to make awareness of it and expose people to it and show them the doorway into it. So I'm going to be working with the MeshNet crew to bring in a Jitsi element to it so that it's not just us 4 or 6 people in the room, so that we'll be able to invite you.
Nice. That'd be great.
And we can make a MeshNet plan template that can be used in any city. That's the goal.
That sounds fascinating.
To be able to package the ingredients that you need, like the hardware and an installation crew. We did a great exercise at Ujima where they made a physical visibility of what is a network, what is a mesh net, and what do you need to do it. And it was laid out very clearly that you need 3 people. You need an organizer, you need a homeowner, and you need a technologist. Those are the 3 people you need. And the organizer needs to talk with the cities and, things like that about regulations and with the homeowner and coordinate the work to get a mesh net set up in a neighborhood. And then to get that neighborhood connected to the next neighborhood by a link. And, it's wonderful that it's starting. Yes.
I can see where there's, multiple layers, because there's servers, there's domain name service, there's, a lot of different components that make the internet work, machinery and infrastructure that has to be up all the time for it to happen. So would each individual then have to have a server, you think, like, and an antenna? You'd also have to have your own server in order to, to serve pages, to serve information on the internet?
I believe you can have one. I don't think it's required. I think we're finding a workaround for that, but don't quote me. It's all so new. It's like we don't have experts anymore. We have the next expert. That's the person who read about it 5 minutes before they're talking to you.
Well, I think it's so inspiring to hear the work that you're doing. And as I said, I'm a web developer, so I'm in this place, and I'm self-employed. So I'm choosing clients that resonate with me. I mean, that's sort of the solidarity that I can work out with. I'm not working with car dealerships anymore.
Yeah.
I went through sort of that phase. I worked for a newspaper for 10 years, building their internet. presence. So I got a lot of experience in the the information flow and the media side of things. But now, I live in the woods and I work from my home with my cat and,
Yay.
work with people that matter. I do a lot of pro bono work for art and musicians and people that I love. So I'm trying to give back in that way. And it's so cool that this group here keeps exposing me to new opportunities for me to be a better person. And I feel like this is something that's going to open me up. So
Awesome.
thank you.
Well,
Thank you, Micky.
you're welcome. My cooperative Agaric has a weekly show and tell on Wednesdays. We're at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and it's online, and we share things we've done with not just Drupal, with any programming, little 5-minute lightning talks. And when no one has a presentation, we talk about how our cooperative is structured and how the inner workings of our cooperatives. We were recently contacted by a group of cooperatives in Argentina that have started this, and it's an incredibly wonderful group. More people join each week, and we just discuss on how does your co-op work. And ficus.coop came up, and we recorded it. It's on Agaric's website, agaric.com or .coop. A recording of our last 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. They explained their method of how the co-ops share work in a federated way. And this could just be the undoing of corporations, of how they share work. And it's defined. It's only like 20 minutes long, very simple. We're all going, "Oh, why didn't I think of that? This is so obvious." But they've defined it onto like when the project comes in, how does it get distributed? Who's in charge of it? Who gets paid what? It's all laid out there and open for input from you to make it better. Yes, so definitely take a look at that. It's on my latest blog on agaric.coop.
That's so awesome.
And I also have a blog, which is a reference blog that delineates all the free software that we use daily to run our organization and some other choices too. And Hillary had asked for what's a replacement for Facebook. We're building whatever we can build to make this not a replacement, but as just our foundation of how we communicate. We're having discussions about this. Right now, there is a software called Mastodon, and that's the umbrella name, and you can make instances of Mastodon under it, it's kind of like a Twitter thing right now, but it's free software that can be built upon and changed. It can be anything. And we call, I'm in an instance I belong to called social.coop. And if you just social.coop, you can see how to join it. Pay $3 a month, and I own part of the platform. I own it with the others. So, and it's free from the Google invaders.
Wow. So I'm curious what you think about a platform like Patreon. Yeah.
It's necessary for us. I'm not really familiar with the Patreon business model, but we definitely need that type of support software to help people support groups that are doing things or individuals that are doing things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there's not any fee to use it. It's just a membership fee for each group. It seems like it's a pretty good platform. And I was thinking that maybe we would have a website and use Patreon, possibly.
Yes, that is definitely a model we need drastically right now, yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But you see, growing up in a wealthy place, I don't know how to ask for money.
I can relate. Actually, totally.
Asking for money? What?
I know. It was like, wait, but there's always money. Like,
yes,
I don't have to worry about that.
You have to go about different ways of getting it. And I think one of the most important things we could build is a way for wealthy people to donate anonymously. because a lot of people do not want to be seen as connected to these issues. It's a danger and a threat to their, not just their livelihood, but their lives. The extremely wealthy just have a bad route at how to give money to someone like me or you without getting X'd out of the country club, man.
Yeah, I think so many of us can't relate necessarily to
Right.
that place.
I've talked to so many people who can't give it away. Well, due to siblings, all kinds of complex structures in their life with lawyers and creeps. And, they'll be penalized if they give it away, and their children's children's will be penalized and outcasts and poverty. Yeah, it's a horror that people don't even think about. They're like, what? He can't give away his millions? Why is that? Yeah.
So is there anyone else who wants to share? I'm not sure who. Oh, you know what we forgot to do? We forgot to go around and say our names, actually.
Well, it's a good time to do that now.
Yeah, we could do that. And we could share
at the end.
Yeah, something that we're receiving from this or inspired by as well. Does anybody want to go first?
The cat.
Okay.
What is the cat's name? We must know.
Rosie.
Rosie. Cool.
I'm Jerry. And I'm so
Hi,
grateful
Jerry.
to be here and to share in this conversation. It's really been enjoyable. Thank you.
I guess I'm Mickey, and you know that. And yes, this was better than a movie at the mall. Not that I've ever been to a movie at the mall.
I'm Hillary, and this was really eye-opening in many ways, and I'm excited to look at more of the resources and make some changes. So thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Anne, and yeah, this was really educative at many levels, and I'm just learning.
We all are.
Learning a lot about technology has been really that I've learned with information. And also I wanted to say to you, Mickey, my son would love you on the fact that you say school is a waste of time, the way how it's formatted. But yeah, and yeah, I just have a question regarding while you were talking, what came up for me is the fact that would you someone because Montreal, and let's say like this be spread not only to where I am in Montreal, but also let's say for the Caribbean where I came from and things like that. Do you have any little information how one make this in cut where they are? I know we touched on it in a general, wondering if you have guidance or do you travel and people on that kind of stuff?
I travel around the world. I was at the World Social Forum in Montreal and did a presentation there. You are in great luck. Drupal Montreal is awesome. And we know the folks from there and can make an introduction. You must get to Drupal Montreal meetup. There's some rocking Canadians there. And there's one of the best teachers in Drupal who is there. And so Drupal is everywhere, pretty much. And if it's not, you can bring it.
Okay, so does that mean it's in the Caribbean as well?
Yes. Yes, there is Drupal in the Caribbean. If you send me an email with specifics, I can probably introduce you to someone or to a group at least. And then you can take it over. And
I wonder if our anonymous guest who is not on video wants to share anything.
if you do, you'll have to unmute yourself. If you do, you'll have to unmute yourself.
I think they are unmuted, actually. Okay, well, if you have anything, you can certainly write in the chat, but we probably are going to end in a few minutes because we're getting to 8 o'clock here. So, yeah, I'm grateful that that Saturday afternoon happened at Sirius Community away in the woods, and Micky and Sophia actually were there. And I'm wondering, are you working with Sophia to get that school started?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Well, she's not really on that team. We do consult with her on stuff. But yeah, it's a cohort of 6 people. 3 are Boston teachers and 3 of us are not. One of us is me, a pirate. Pirate birth, sorry.
No worries. Totally. I love hearing the story when we met that you wore a pirate hat at an interview or multiple interviews, and that you're like, no, you're not going to hire me wearing this. I don't want to work there.
That's right. Yes, a pirate hat, a jester hat, something odd that they would probably freak out at. And if they don't like me with that, then I cannot exist there because I'm not just one face.
Yeah, that's true for all of us. And
it
takes courage.
Yes, but we all try to be one face with this advertising thing that tells us we need an identity and it should be this one. Mm-hmm. You're an Apple person, aren't you? Yeah. No. Oh, no. And without your personal power, you can become any shill for any corporation easily and not realize it. Mm-hmm. And you're not a bad person. You're not ignorant. You are just ignorant of some facts. You're not, dumb or, stupid. You have been waylaid by the non-pirates. So get back on the ship.
Yeah, and I think there's so many pieces you brought up that could become themes for new Grace Between Race conversations. Mm-hmm. And I want to just put a big bookmark in some of those / write them down, especially around your conversation around gender and gender identity. I think that's one we really need to have.
Yes.
And that's been coming up a lot for me lately. So putting it out there, who might want to come and talk more about that. And maybe JWoww, we could have JWoww back to talk about that possibly. Do you know JWoww?
I don't believe I do.
Really? I thought you did. Okay. I just heard you talking about her with Sophia, but maybe not. Julie Woods? Do you know?
Julie Woods? No, that doesn't
really
seem familiar.
Okay, well, then I think I need to connect you two.
Yes.
That needs to happen.
Yes.
And yeah, and I'm excited, and we definitely need to talk more about something around employment too.
Yes.
And have that
I'd like to
conversation.
work towards having an open GISI chat room at certain time every week where people can just come in and ask questions and talk or whatever. And I'd like to enlist like maybe 5 or 6 people or more who could carry this on so that there would be someone in there and it doesn't have to be an obligation for one person to be there every week.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be of enormous value once it got started. If people know there's a place I can go every Friday between 3 and 5, to ask some questions about cooperatives or, whatever.
Yeah, well, let us know when you've got that set up, and
Shall,
we'll
because
share
you're
it with
going to be
others.
hosting it too. No.
Yeah.
I said I was a pirate.
Uh-huh.
You are conscripted.
I would be happily conscripted.
They all are at the beginning.
As long as I have choice whether or not to stay.
Choice and anonymity. You too can wear the mask.
Nice.
I went to a sushi place last night, I just have to tell you, and the chef was wearing this on the back of his head. And so when he turned around, he was...
Oh, that's really funny.
It was so cute. He's a wicked intellectual, has his great dry humor that people don't get, and like it's just beautiful.
Did you steal off of his head, or how did you get it?
No, I have my own. I'm going to wear it next time I eat sushi.
Okay, perfect. Right, you could have like conversations with your backs turned to each other.
Exactly. Talking behind you. I always thought that was strange because that was in front of your face. If I'm behind my back, I'm in front of my face. I never got that one.
Right?
Anyway, I'd like to thank you for bringing your wisdom and your peace and calm and resolve to just inform, understand, and intake and outreach. You have a wonderful presence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything that you want to share, Anne, as we transition?
I'll say thank you to Micky. I think she's on an awesome trend, and I'm loving the overall idea of balancing the energies of how we use this technology, which is so powerful and have the power to change so many lives, on a grand scale. So instead of people using it to manipulate and control and separate and divide and all of that, we could use it in the way that we, to build communities, to be together, to create more harmony and share, because there's enough for everyone to live. There's go around. We just have to understand that, and not be pulling and letting greed and power go to our heads. So yes, so thank you for educating me and information, and I would love an option. I haven't been able to really grab all of it right here on the spot, but I know if I go to the links and I get more information, I'll be able to go step by step and perhaps come up with something, because I have my own goals and my own ideas too, and maybe there's something that I could use and find a way to use my energy to help the process. Yes. So thank you.
Yes. It will all become painfully clear very soon, and then you will have to act. Ha ha! My mission is complete.
Well, thanks for putting it all out there and being the pirate and being with us for this time. And I just want to say that in 2 weeks, we are looking forward to having Opayemi join us, who is a friend of mine who's a part of the dance community here and who was a doctor for decades. and she left being a doctor to be an activist, and does that through embodiment and just theatrics, basically like being a theatrical person as much as possible wherever she is, and speaking her truth and bringing it out. And I have had the many times of the blessing of being with her and hearing her message, and I'm looking forward to seeing what she will share with us. So I'm just going to ring the bowl in honoring of our ancestors and guides and all who brought us here to come together and have this conversation. And I invite us to integrate as we breathe together in these last moments. So thanks all for watching and joining us, and see you in 2 weeks.
Great. I have posted some links in the chat.
Great.
For you to join Show and Tell, Jerry, and anyone else who wants to join it, and a link to about governance for cooperatives. Some good reading.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Micky. And everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Have a good night.